All right, we've looked at profile view properties, and we're going to look at how we can edit some of the styles a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and click on the profile view, and I'm going to go up here to the profile view properties section and hit the edit profile view style. And in here you have a lot more information that you can deal with and a lot of things that you can really edit. Let's start at the information tab. Again, you've got the name of the style that you're using. This doesn't give you a whole lot of information that you can change in, but when we start to get into like graph will allow us to change scale factors. Now notice horizontal is grayed out because horizontal is tied to what it was initially created down here. But I do have the ability to change the vertical scale factor. So what I'm going to do is let's change that to a 10 scale and apply that. And notice what that's done to my grid. And you can see that's changed that quite a bit, which might be a little bit better for our purposes. So again, you can change that. But again, we have to change this first and then generate it if we want to do it that way. So I'm going to go back into that, go back into my profile view properties, edit my style. Notice it's still set to 50. It's a 10 here, and it's a vertical exaggeration. Some people like to go left to right. Some people go right to left. You can change it after the fact. I do get some issues sometimes if I change it right to left, so I've been pretty much running left to right most of the time. Let's go to the grid. Grid has some clipping kind of things you can do, or our padding above and below. So we've got your access changes. What I'm going to do is clip my vertical grid. This is kind of interesting. I'm going to clip it, clip to highest on the profile. Notice when I apply that, how that clipped that off over here. Gives it a nice visual style. Do the same thing horizontally if you're interested. You can change title annotations, horizontal axis information, vertical axis information. Let's go to display, and what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this information over here because it's somewhat redundant and I don't want to see that in mine. Those are the right side axis annotations. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the right axis on, but I'm going to toggle off the major annotation. I'm going to turn off the major and minor ticks. Go ahead and apply that, and notice what that's done is taken care of that for me. So again, you have some flexibility, and I could decrease the size of it this way, and I could clip it this way. I can also add and subtract those kind of things. So what we've got our grid the way we want it. So now what we're going to do is actually get to the heart of the matter, which is creating a vertical profile design. And I have a drawing called Schematic Layout Profile Data. It's Lab 6B, and you'll notice on there we have a tangent or a gradient A, B, C, and D. They have parameters on them such as percent grades, and they also have station information. A designer has a lot of choices when they get into this. You can design it with a station and a grade. You can design it with a station and an elevation. I prefer using a station and a grade because what that does is calculates the PVI elevation for me instead of rounding the grade, and I always like to work with pure grades. So what we're going to do is, you might want to zoom in so we can see this pretty detailed. We're also going to be using over here these transparent commands, which are great for this purpose. We're going to use the profile station elevation, we have profile grade station, and we have profile grade elevation. So what we're going to do is create a vertical profile. Go to my profile creation tools. It wants me to select the profile view that I want to work in, and it'll want to generate some information here. So what we're going to go ahead and do is just kind of let it go with what it wants to do. I do want to do a design profile. Notice you have different types of profiles you could deal with. So we're going to go ahead and say it's the design profile. I'm going to go ahead and let it label, and it'll generate this little toolbar for me, which is great, that we need. And there's a lot of tools in here. This should look pretty similar to the horizontal alignment tools, and it is kind of, except it's dealing more with PVIs, parabolas, those kind of things. So we're going to start over here on the left side here and open this little guy up. And notice you can draw tangents with curves or curve settings. So what we want to do first is go to curve settings. And I found it easier for me to go ahead and actually place the curves in while I'm drawing the tangents and then coming back and editing them. You don't have to do it that way. You can add them much like we did the horizontal curves. So we've got again, as a designer, you have several choices. Um, First, select your curve type. You have three to choose from. It's either parabolic, circular, or asymmetric, which is another name for an unequal tangent. So we're going to go ahead and choose parabolic. For crest curves and sag curves, you have different parameters. You can either do it through the length or the k value. I'm going to just choose length, and I'm going to go ahead and just set my length to 200 for my crests and 200 for my sags. Okay, that, and then we're going to actually tell it to draw tangents with curves. So now we're in the mode that as we're establishing PVIs, we're actually going to get a vertical curve, which is nice, and then we can come back and place that differently. So what I want to do first is just grab a starting point, and since I want to attach this design to the initial station and elevation here, I'm just going to use a nose snap. I'm going to shift, grab the endpoint, and I'm going to snap to that. So what it's done is it's fed it that information in terms of elevation and station, and now basically I'm off and running. And I could actually just go in and eyeball this stuff in, or I could use different tool sets. So what we're going to do is use a tool over here, this transparent tool, and again we have the profile station elevation. So I would say I know the PVI station and I know its elevation, but I like to work in this next one here, which we call profile grade station. So we're going to select that, and it'll again ask me to select the profile view and specify the grade. So if you look on your sheet, you'll see that the grade for gradient A is a plus 0.5%. So we're going to go ahead and put 0.5, and you get this little glyph here. You can basically drag it out, or you can be very specific. We want to be actually at station 3, so I'm going to go ahead and put that for 300. You should notice that your tangent came in, and it's now asking me for my next grade. So the next grade for gradient B is a 7% grade, and we're going to tell it station. Point F is positioned at 15 plus 0, 0. Now you'll notice that up here there's my PVI location for the next curve, but you'll also notice that what it's done is it's placed a parabolic vertical curve in for me at 200 feet. So now we're going to go to the next grade, which I've selected to be a negative 1.5%. So I'm going to say negative 1.5. Station for point G is 24 plus 0, 0. Again, there's my parabolic curve. Next PVI. So the next grade, or the last grade actually, is a negative 6%. And we could actually snap to that as the end station. What I'm going to do is just tell it 2830. And I'm going to hit enter, escape, and you should see your curve information in. So what we have now is we have our design, and one of the things you'll notice is that's going beyond my actual sampled line. So that would create problems if we're building a corridor, but we're not going to worry about that right now, and actually we will fix that here in a minute. Okay, your profile should be complete now. If we look at this, it should be all labeled for you. Notice that if we start here, we see the grades are labeled, percent grade, percent grade. Notice our curve. We have a PVI station, PVI elevation, K factor, length of vertical curve, EVC, BVC information. This information can then be moved very readily. Just hit the grip. I'm going to take this guy, bring him down a little bit. Okay, and we can see that. Then the next thing we want to do is go ahead and take a look at maybe doing some edits on this. So what we're going to do is take and click on the actual design, and we're going to come up here and we're going to look at the geometry editor. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You've got tools in here: add PVIs, delete PVIs, add vertical curves, tangents, move PVIs. You can also do it through grip processes, which again is probably not the best method, but I like this tool here. This is my profile grid view, and what this allows me to do is go in and change things So I can change grades in, out, stations, all of that stuff. First thing let's recognize is we said that this is not over our profile, which would give us, or our existing ground profile, which would give us problems. So I'm going to back that off, and I'm going to make that 2825. And I'm going to go ahead and just get out of here, and let's just make sure now that when we zoom up on that, we can see that it's actually behind that line, which is good. So we're going to go ahead back into that, and we're going to establish profile vertical curve lengths. So the 200 was just an initial design, but let's say we've decided we want to come back and put these in bigger value ranges. So I'm going to make the first curve a 500-foot vertical curve, the second one an 800-foot vertical curve, and the third one a 500-foot vertical curve. So what I'm going to do is just click in the length, make this 500. If there's problems where they would overlap, it would tell me. It doesn't give me that information, so I'm good to go. And this is 500. So no overlaps. Still everything's good. Notice it knows the percentages. That hasn't changed. There's your algebraic difference. Also notices it tells you whether you're crest or sag curves. So everything's good here. We're going to come out of here. And notice it's as simple as that to make a change. And that's all you have to deal with. Now this one, probably want to adjust your label a little bit. So I'm going to take that label, bring it up, get out here, bring it up. Look at that. Now we have some tools that we can use to actually then bring in the band information. So what we're going to do is bring in a band below here. And what we want it to do is harvest information in terms of existing ground and proposed ground, so that a layout person would know exactly what they're looking at for existing and proposed. So what we're going to do is click on our profile view. We're going to go to our profile view props. We're going to go to bands if it's not already there. Notice we didn't tell it to have a band initially. We turned that off. So what we're going to do is grab one of the band styles here. They've got quite a few in here. I find that they usually need a little editing. So what we're going to do is grab one called elevations and stations. We're going to add that. And this will pop up. Usually you can toggle off what you want on, those kind of things. I usually just don't mess with that too much. Apply it. We're going to OK that. And we should notice at the bottom now what we're seeing is our band. And you'll see that it's got the station at the bottom and elevation. Now the problem, if you look at this, you'll notice that the elevation is the same, and we need to know, well, is that existing, is that proposed? And what we really would like to see is existing, which you can probably see that's 70, 40, 71, so that is actually above, so that's existing information. It's not even giving us proposed. And it's at 2 decimal places and 3. So we need to make some edit changes in this. So what we're going to do is click on the band, right click, we're going to go to profile view props, and I'm going to do it, I can either do it right here or I can do it right here, either way. I found if you do it here you have a little bit more of a selection that we have to deal with. So what we're going to do is come over here and we're going to change the label style a little bit. So I'm going to grab the one that I want, elevations and stations, and go to this box right here. Now this gets into labeling, and labeling is a little bit involved, so we're going to go ahead and go to band details, and it's broken down into 2 areas, title text, and then this is the actual labels. So there's one for majors and minors here, and we're not going to worry about any of this other stuff. So I want to be on the major. We're going to go to compose label, and the label composer shows me that I actually have 3 things happening: a station value, an existing ground elevation, and a finished ground elevation. So we're going to leave the station value alone. We're going to go to existing ground elevation. It's called EG elevation. It's in the middle band at the anchor point. Contents is the key thing right here, so we're going to click on contents, hit the ellipsis there, and it'll take us to this piece of the composer. This is your contents section. And what it's going to do is allow us to build this. So I'm going to click on this and notice it changes over here and it's called Profile 1 Elevation. Remember that, Profile 1, because that's going to be our existing. And what we're going to do is set that precision to a 1-foot interval. So we don't really want it to be that precise. Now here's the mistake a lot of people make is they hit OK and it doesn't do anything. You have to promote this change. Notice it made the change. Now we hit OK. We can apply that, OK that out. I'm going to apply it again. So what we're going to do is incrementally step through here, and you'll notice that that band has now changed. Okay, and that's good. That's the existing. So what we want to now do is do the same thing for the band. We're going to edit the profile view props on that. We're going to go to the same spot, elevations and stations. This time I want to do the major station, but I want to do it for finish ground. Finish ground then brings this up, ellipsis, and again clicking on that, this is for profile 2 elevation. So what we're going to do is set this to 1/100th of a foot. Don't forget to promote it, OK it. You can OK through, and notice how it's changed your band. Now you may also notice that it's still harvesting existing and existing because it thinks profile 1 is existing and profile 2 is existing. So we're going to change that into profile view props. If we toggle over here in this box, you'll notice that profile 1 is set to the existing. Profile 2 is also set to the existing. So we're going to click in here. We're going to say that's actually layout. Apply that. OK that. And now what you're getting is you're getting existing ground with a 0 decimal place or to the nearest foot, and here you're getting 2 decimal places for your proposed. So styles can be a little tricky, particularly for your profiles. I found that that's always going to be one of the trickier things that you deal with. And once you have created that, then it's not too bad. Let's go ahead and see if we can generate for a 50 foot, because right now we're just coming in at 100. We may actually want quarter stations, so let's go ahead and go to the band, because a lot of times we do use that. And again, you could click down here actually and do your edits right here. Now notice your, let's see what we've got here. My major interval is set to hundreds. My minor interval is set to 25. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at the style here. I'm going to go to minor stations. Compose the label. And again, those are set like that. So we're going to go to that piece of it. Set that to 1 foot. Don't forget to promote it. That's always a... Now in this case I didn't select on it first, so I'm going to just go ahead and select on that like I should have done. Hit the 1 foot precision and promote it. That took care of it. And I'm going to go ahead and go into finish ground, and that's again profile 2. Click on that. Set it to 1/100th of a foot. Promote it. OK it. Apply it. You have to go back through a little bit more work. Now notice that the band did not show up that information, so we have to toggle that on. Okay, so we've set up our stationing to happen at minor stations, but nothing's showing up. So what we'll see is in the band itself there's something that's turned off. So we're going to go to the profile view styles. If we click on here, edit, notice that we have things that are turned off, and one of the things we see is labels at minor stations. So what we're going to do is apply that, OK that, OK that again. Now, when we look at this, we can see that some things are not quite right here. We're getting station and elevation information at quarters, and what we really want is perhaps just the existing or proposed, so we can fix that. So let's go in and see. We've got station and looks like elevation. So we're going to go to the minor sections on this. And this is where it gets a little confusing, and that's why it's nice to somewhat make mistakes sometimes so that you can see how to fix this. So I'm going to go to band details. I'm going to go to minor station, compose my label, and I can see it's composed of two things, what's called an existing elevation and a finished ground elevation. If I go to existing elevation, I can see there's a problem right there, and I might have set that up myself earlier. I don't want that to really say station value. What I really want that to say is profile elevation 1. Set that to the nearest foot, promote that, okay that. And for finished ground elevation, I want that to say profile elevation 2 to the 100th of the foot. Okay that, apply it. And there we have it. And now you see that it's actually reflecting when it should. So you can really adjust your bands to do a lot of different things for you. We could get rid of the existing ground on that side and just have proposed through there. So and that would be easy to do. I could just click on that. What I'm going to do is actually delete that. So I'm going to go again to my minor station, compose label. And what I'm going to do, the existing ground, I'm just going to delete it. I don't even want to see it. So I'm going to okay that. And notice what I've done is gotten rid of it. So I've cleaned up my band a little bit as I look at that. Now keep in mind also that since this is all together, any change down here will be reflected up here. So what I'm going to do is, watch, I'm going to take and grip my center line alignment, and I'm going to grip this guy and move him quite significantly. And you should notice that what it did up here is it made a change in the existing ground. Vertical stays in place, but it really knows how they're linked together. So one change is driving the other, and that's a very important process in this whole thing. I'm going to undo that back, bring it back to what it was. There we go. So there we have it for this week, and we're going to be building on this concept next week, but this is a nice way of developing a vertical profile.